Hello, Oklahoma fans, college football fans. Welcome into Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football. This is Oklahoma Sooners Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. Tonight we are getting into previews for Oklahoma against Kent State. Not really an exciting one, not really one that Oklahoma fans are really looking forward to too much in this game. But, I mean, it is a game that you're coming off of a bye week. Oklahoma fans are ready to get the show on the road, get things going once again, as the Oklahoma Sooners have been without a game in just what feels like too long. So it's exciting. There's football this weekend, and it's not just any college football. It's Oklahoma football. Apologies for not having any shows this week, at least from me. We didn't have any Sunday show. There wasn't really anything to recap on Sunday. And then, of course, on Tuesday, just kind of unexpectedly on the road. But we are here today. Make sure to jump in that live chat, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on X and you're just now learning about Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football over on X, jump over to YouTube real quick and just go over there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for us. And then, of course, that's the best way to jump in the live chat with us as well. So we'll kind of keep an eye on the live chat as we go throughout the night. Of course, if you want to support the channel a little bit further, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, those are the two best ways to support the channel. Just real quick, easy, free ways for you guys. But if you want to support us a little bit further, you can sign up and become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. Just hit that link down in the description below, or you can hit that QR code, scan that QR code that is on the screen as well. Two great ways to support the network and the show is just by becoming a member, or you can go over to vocfb.com/shop. Find yourself some merchandise. I'm wearing the hat tonight, wearing the shirt, all decked out in the merchandise tonight for tonight's live show. But very excited to get into it, like I mentioned, because guys, we've got a lot that we can get into. There really is a ton, and we talk about these smaller games. And it is a little bit less exciting in some regard. But like I said, Oklahoma was off this past week. They had their bye week, kind of preparing. But then, of course, then you have the big news with John Mateer going down with the surgery, and we're kind of wondering what that's going to look like without him. Bringing Michael Hawkins Jr. in to replace him. So there's a little bit of attention there that Oklahoma fans are excited about to watch Michael Hawkins Jr. And then, of course, I mean, just getting back into action. There's a lot of answers that could be given in this game, I think, and we're going to get to a lot of those. But of course, this Saturday, October 4th at 4. I think it starts at 3:00 Central Standard Time. I've got Eastern Time written down in the notes. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be on SEC Network for those of you who need to know. And we're going to get into so much more with this game. But first, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into it, because Oklahoma playing Kent State this Saturday in Norman. I've seen a lot of people questioning, and I don't know if this is real questions or if it's people just kind of teasing, but and not really sure maybe. But Oklahoma is not doing any kind of stripe the stadium or anything to my knowledge. So please throw that in the chat and let us know if we're missing something like that. I was just seeing all kinds of stuff on social media with people like, hey, are we doing a whiteout this game, or are we doing stripe the stadium? No, not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, it is just another day in paradise in Norman, Oklahoma. But Oklahoma jumps up to number 5 in the AP poll. When I'm looking at the AP poll, I really don't know. I'm not sure. I think that's about right. Personally, I think that's about right where Oklahoma is ranked, just because you look at the rest of the poll, and I think it's a lot of speculation right now of what teams would be doing against other teams. You don't really know where everybody stands at this point in the season. And as you get into the early season rankings, I just don't know. I think there's some cases where maybe Ole Miss, some Oklahoma fans don't feel like Ole Miss deserves to be ahead of Oklahoma. I would put them ahead of Oklahoma because I thought LSU was a better team than they showed to be against Ole Miss. You've got teams like Texas A&M wanting to be bumped up above Oklahoma. I think really those three in that 4, 5, 6 slot, that's kind of there. And I don't have that pulled up on the screen. But, just to kind of go through the AP poll rankings, if you don't know, you've got Ohio State at number 1, which I wouldn't put them at number 1 right now. I think number 2 or 3 is kind of where I'm putting them. But anyways, got Ohio State number 1, Oregon number 2, Miami number 3. We will see about Miami this weekend. If they could beat Florida State and beat them with a comfortable beat down there, I think I'm feeling really good about Miami up there being that high. And then you've got Ole Miss at number 4. We'll see how long they hold on. Trinidad Chambliss stepping in. I want to talk more about him in just a second, so we'll bounce back to that and in relevance to Oklahoma sports, as I always do. Oklahoma at number 5, and then you got Texas A&M at number 6, Penn State number 7, IU at number 8 in the nation, number 9, the Texas Longhorns, and then Alabama at number 10. Of course, going down from there, I honestly think maybe Texas Tech deserves to be ahead of Alabama. This weekend is kind of upset alert for them against Houston, where they're coming off of a really big win. Let's see what they can do this weekend. But anyways, I think going through the AP poll, Oklahoma being ranked at number 5, I like it. It's a good ranking for them right now. I think a lot of people are saying that Oklahoma shouldn't be ranked as high as they are because of, you look at where they are, when you the real reason is that John Mateer is not playing for Oklahoma right now. And I think a lot of people want to bump Oklahoma down just because of that. And I just don't think that's fair. First of all, you haven't seen, maybe he does come out and he comes out on the field, but he's not going to this weekend. Don't get your hopes up for that. But you don't know how long he's going to be out. They're really pushing for him to make it by the Texas game. And I think that's really interesting. If he were to jump in and by the Texas game, I think, like I mentioned before, that's when you start to build the statue for Dr. Shin there in Oklahoma. But you just don't know about this Oklahoma team just because John Mateer's not in there. And we talked about this before, but because of their defense, and we'll get to the defense later on when we're looking at this matchup between Oklahoma and Kent State. But I really just don't know why so many are down on Oklahoma, because it's not like you're putting a backup quarterback in that doesn't have experience. He didn't play well last season, but he was also given the same circumstances that we kind of tried to give Jackson Arnold the benefit of the doubt for last season. And it was an atrocious offense for many reasons, for the injuries and for the skill just not being there because of the injuries, I suppose. And then you've got a terrible offensive coordinator calling plays last year, where that's all different now. So this year it's much different. It feels more like a complete team. And you've seen that on the field so far this season with the big win over Michigan, with being able to squeeze out a win regardless of the controversy against Auburn. And then, of course, just what you've seen from that defense. I think that's the biggest thing for Oklahoma. You don't really have that great of an offense. And we went through some of those stats, I think, last week. You don't really have some of those. You don't have your quarterback, but you've got this defense that is just outstanding this year. And so I don't know how anyone can really just be totally against Oklahoma and expect them just to drop a couple of games here in October just because they don't have John Mateer, which, again, we don't know when he's going to return. From the looks of it, it kind of seems like he might very well be back by Red River, and I don't know. I don't think he will be, but I think he really wants to be. And I think the team really wants him to be. So we'll see. I just think it's odd when people are counting Oklahoma out with this defense. You've got Michael Hawkins Jr., who is an athlete, and we don't know. Maybe he's improved a lot. We didn't get to see a whole lot of him. He didn't really showcase anything whenever they played against Temple, and he got in there a little bit. But we'll see this weekend. That's going to be the big test. So a lot of eyes going to be on Michael Hawkins Jr. How does he perform this season under this new regime, under this new offensive regime? Where does he go? How well does he perform? I think that's going to say a lot. Right now, last I looked, Oklahoma is a 45.5-point favorite. So we're looking around 49-6 is about what the projected score is here. Based on Vegas, I'll get to my score prediction here at the end. For those of you who know, I've been pretty close. So we'll see. And when we're looking at that point total too, 53.5, man, I'm really close to that mark right there. I think this is going to be an interesting game for Oklahoma because you're coming off of a bye week. Kent State also coming off of a bye week. We'll talk a little bit more about them in just a moment. But then both of these teams coming off of bye week, and you look at this game for Oklahoma, could this be a trap game? Maybe not a trap game in the sense that you're going to drop it. I don't think anybody would expect Oklahoma to lose to Kent State, who is arguably the worst team in the FBS right now. They do have a win on their record. They were able to snap their long losing streak. They ended up beating Merrimack. So they do have a win on the season. But we'll get to more about Kent State and just why I think they're one of the worst teams in all of college football right now in the FBS. And I don't think Oklahoma drops this game, but does Oklahoma kind of get a little bit of a scare, maybe similar to what was that 2019, maybe 2020, 2021, right in that range, somewhere in there where they went against Tulane. Probably would have been 2020 or 2021, going against Tulane, and Tulane hung in there really close with Oklahoma and kind of gave them a little bit of a scare. At halftime, you're sitting there really close. Of course, Oklahoma pulls out in the second half, but it was definitely a scare for an Oklahoma team that should have handled business there against the Tulane team. Is it that kind of game for Oklahoma where you should be beating them by 45 points, but are you going to? And that's kind of where I'm at here. I don't think that this is going to be that game, but it could be for Oklahoma because you do have a very big game next weekend that Oklahoma is looking forward to. A lot of the players are looking forward to it. The staff obviously is looking forward to it. But how much are you focusing on that game next week in the Red River rivalry? And how much are you focusing here? And the same could go for Texas. They're going against a really good. Your record is not always. You're not always what your record says you are, and I think that's exactly the case for Florida. They are a very good defense, and so Texas has a lot more to worry about than Oklahoma this week. But the same thing goes for Texas. Are they looking too far forward at Oklahoma? Are they looking at Florida's record and saying, they've already got 2 losses on the season. We're good. We can get past these guys. We can do this and move on to Oklahoma. And the same for Oklahoma. Is Oklahoma looking at Kent State and just completely looking past them and getting ready for the Red River rivalry and not paying attention to what task is at hand? So it's a big game for Oklahoma to make sure that they don't get into that situation. And just a bad game right here. I mean, just beating Kent State by 18 points wouldn't cut it. And that might drop Oklahoma down in the rankings, which might not mean a whole lot. But, it's something to look at. And I think it's something worth noting for sure. Oklahoma so far this season is 3-1 against the spread. Kent State 1-3 against the spread. So kind of interested when I'm looking at those, for those of you who like to put a little bit of cheddar on the line. I don't recommend, hardly ever recommend putting anything and doing any betting on your own team. Although for some of us, hey, that's our own team is the one that we know the best, right? But we can all get those crimson goggles a little blurry and not be focusing there and maybe putting those that cheddar on what we would hope for or what we're our heart wants rather than what our brain is telling us. But really interesting there. I think that's good. I mean, Illinois State was the only game where Oklahoma did not cover that spread. It was one that I felt like they really should have, but it was a large spread. They didn't end up covering the spread. Interesting there. Let's see. Can Oklahoma live up to that with a 45-point spread? They're going to have to score 46 points to cover that, and not score 46, but win by 46 to cover that. And so interesting to look at. Let's see here. Oklahoma, when you look at the points total right now, looking at 53.5. So that's where we kind of get that 49-6 is about what they're expecting Oklahoma, what Vegas is expecting Oklahoma to win. So Oklahoma, they have actually gone under the total points every game this season so far. So all 4 games they have hit the under. So that's something to look at, something to pay attention to for sure. And when you look at that 53.5, do you feel like Oklahoma? I think if you're looking at 53.5, do you feel like Oklahoma can score 53? Because if you do, if you think Oklahoma scores 53 against Kent State, then the over is a very high possibility because we've seen everybody is able to get at least a field goal on Oklahoma this year, it seems like. Could this be Oklahoma's first shutout too? We'll get into Oklahoma's defense in just a moment. We mentioned a moment ago that Auburn game kind of edging out Auburn, beating them 24-17. Then you got a bye week and getting guys kind of rested up, healed up, and getting them back into action this week against Kent State. Of course, now having to go without John Mateer because of his hand injury, had that surgery. From all reports, seems like it's gone really well, and he's on track to be recovered on time, whatever that means and whatever that timing is. For now, we're going to have to see what the young athletic quarterback and Michael Hawkins Jr. is able to do. And, I think when you look at what he looked like, and I'm not saying maybe stat line or even how the game turned out, against Navy. But I think when you see how he performed in that Navy bowl game, that's kind of more what Oklahoma fans are expecting from him, something more confident. He's got more weapons around him compared to last season. And of course, it's just way more, just competent offense and offensive scheme and offensive play calling. So I think when you look at this overall where he's stepping into and the situation that Michael Hawkins is coming to, he should be in a much better situation than he was last year. And I don't think that's too much to say, or beyond that we're stretching by any means at all. So very interested to see how he performs. And just to go over real quick to the chat, 'cause I see modern day caveman in the chat. He says Jaden Knott needs to get on the field and start contributing, or OU needs to get their legal team involved for breach of contract to recoup all that NIL. I will get into the running because, of course, Oklahoma, their strength lies in its defense and then the quarterback run. Defense only allowing 9 points per game so far. And really looking at all the skill positions on defense, too, just the depth that's there. And, of course, having some guys return that we're really excited about. And we'll get into, you can talk about Eli Bowen coming back. He's going to be in the rotation a little bit more. I believe Kendall Dolby might start to get a little bit more of the action since he's had more time to rest. They've been playing him a little bit. I think he's going to be in the game a lot more against Kent State, kind of working some of that rust off and getting him back in the action, which I don't think there's really hardly any rust. When you see him in on the field, it seems like he's being a key playmaker just about every time. So really that's the case. But getting to the offensive stats, kind of looking at what they lean on, their strength is definitely that quarterback run, but with the running backs, that's definitely something modern day caveman that Oklahoma has to focus on, something that Oklahoma wants to do better at. And they've got Torrey Blaylock in there that's got 181 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then I think it's not good enough. It's not to Oklahoma standards, and they do want a feature back. I think Oklahoma fans want a feature back. Of course, Ben Arbuckle talked about it and said if you've got guys, like DeMarco Murray and Adrian Peterson, then of course you're going to use them as a key back. But when you've got multiple guys that are talented, multiple guys that are showing that they're capable of stepping in, you're going to spread the ball a little bit more. But even at that, Oklahoma's running backs have really not been able to do anything on the ground. And so I think that's something that Oklahoma should be focused on this week. I think you don't worry. You're not going to lose to Kent State as long as you don't do anything stupid. And so I think and I think I mentioned this before, I think my game plan is go in there and force my running backs to do something, force my running backs and the offensive line to work together and get something going on the running game where they feel confident about that going into the bulk of that SEC play coming down the stretch. And, I think that's really important for Oklahoma coming into this game. Just force that run game to do something. Force that run game to start to feel confident about itself. And Jaden Knott is definitely one that I think needs to be in the bulk of that. And we'll get to more of that later on as well. Of course, you got the wide receiver core that just seems really deep right now. It seems like that whole wide receiver room is looking really good. You've got Deion Burks, who's been doing really well this season so far with 265 yards, a couple touchdowns on the season. You got Keontez Lewis, that's over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. And then, of course, you got guys like Jaron Kanik, who is, I guess I haven't seen, maybe somebody jumped above him, but leading the tight ends in the entire nation, leading tight ends and receiving yards. I haven't redone that since Oklahoma had a bye week, re-looked and revisited that stat, but I'm going to assume he's probably still up there at the top, if not on the top of all tight ends. But, you look at Oklahoma, I mean, they've just got too much talent to go into this game and not be able to just do whatever they want. That's why I think the game plan has to be focus on that run game, get something going. You've got the wide receivers and, obviously tight end now as well that you can rely on if you need it. And I think that this offense is far too talented for Kent State to be able to stop, even on a 3rd and long. You've seen it with John Mateer a lot this season where Oklahoma gets into that 3rd and 12, 3rd and 16, and they're still able to get that big play to get the first down and keep their drives going. I think they've been really well when you look at those third and long situations. A team that has been performing above their weight class when it comes to that. So just really good. Of course, looking through what Oklahoma's got on that availability report, which they don't even really have an availability report because they're not going against one of their power team or even an SEC team right now, and they're not going to have one. But if you were to look at who they are expecting to be back in the game, you've also got Javonte Gibson, who should be making some play time this week. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Eli Bowen coming back into the fold as well. So really exciting to see Oklahoma come out here, get another game going. And, of course, just working out some kinks that that you need to work out getting into SEC play. Like I said, I think that the run game is the part that you focus on the most, and not just your quarterback run game. I think you utilize Michael Hawkins as a runner because he is athletic, and that you can feel confident about him running the ball and doing just fine with doing that. I think you also, if you're not positive that John Mateer is going to be back in a week, you work it out and make sure that he feels confident in delivering the ball, that he can work through his progressions. You give him things some good things that's going to build his confidence. And this is the perfect game to work all of that out. So I think that's what Oklahoma really has to focus in on. Looking over the chat, Jesse Browning, he says, I don't think Kent State's a track game because Bixby High School can beat them. I guarantee they probably could. I guarantee they probably could beat them. I think Bixby High School could probably beat a couple of other collegiate teams that are playing in Oklahoma this season. Some two colleges that come to mind, at least one for sure that is not looking good and has a lot of players sitting out because of recent events. But no, I really think, Kent State, I don't think is a trap game in the sense that Oklahoma could lose. I think it could be a trap game in the sense that Oklahoma doesn't perform very well because they're looking ahead and they end up winning, but they just don't look good on the field, on tape. And I think if that's the case, then of course the overreactions will start to come from at least the national media. Oklahoma media might just say, hey, they were looking ahead. We know what they're capable of, and we can kind of look past this. But I think national media might overreact to that in some regard, and rightfully so, because they're without John Mateer, and they could say, hey, well, this must be because they didn't have John Mateer in the game. See, that's why they didn't perform well against Kent State, who even Bixby High School could beat. So, yeah, I don't think it's a trap game in the sense that Oklahoma would lose this game. I think Oklahoma really has this game to work out anything that they need to work out before getting into the bulk of their season and the bulk of that SEC play, where it's going to be a tough stretch. You got Texas at South Carolina, and then Ole Miss at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU to close it out. I think I went correct in the order as well on that too. So off the top of my head, I guess I've looked at that schedule enough that I don't know. I might have gotten the Ole Miss game out of the rotation in there. But anyways, those teams that Oklahoma's going to have to go against, and like I've mentioned too, and I think I'm beating a dead horse with this, but Ole Miss better than I think many of us anticipated. Alabama's looking good again, so you have to kind of be careful about that. And then you look at Missouri, way better than I thought that they would be. That's actually looking like a really tough team, which shocks me. Who else? I think LSU is still a really good team. I think they've got a good defense, and that can keep them in just about any game that they play this year. I know they dropped the game against Ole Miss, but I'm kind of curious to see what they keep on doing. But yeah, I mean, it's a brutal schedule. South Carolina, not as good as we anticipated them to be, but you're still going on the road to South Carolina. So it's going to be a tough schedule down the stretch for sure. Anyways, let's get into some of these key matchups, some of the key factors in this game. I think the big one, I'm going to start off with the quarterback situation with Michael Hawkins Jr. making his first start here this season. It's going to be the major storyline. They're going to be talking about it plenty, I'm sure, on the broadcast. So I'll have to tune in to kind of listen to that to see what the broadcast is saying about Michael Hawkins Jr. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about John Mateer not being out there, but I want to see what Michael Hawkins is able to do. How well is he able to execute everything in this offense. How well is he going to perform within this new scheme, within this new system under Ben Arbuckle? And what is his ability to kind of overcome and avoid first, but if he does make mistakes, avoid mistakes, but if he does make mistakes, how is he able to overcome them? Because I think that's where Oklahoma fans feel really confident that when John Mateer throws an interception, he's going to fix it and he's not going to make that mistake. And you've seen that plenty of times this season. You saw that Illinois State threw an interception. Man, that sucks. But he turns it around and the defense has his back, so he's able to turn it around real fast and fixes it and doesn't have another mistake throughout the game. Saw it against Michigan. So I think when you see that, I think that's really crucial. Is can Michael Hawkins Jr. do the same thing? If he can he avoid mistakes, that would be much better and make Oklahoma fans feel a lot better about it. But if he does make mistakes, how does he handle those mistakes? And I think that's going to be crucial for Michael Hawkins. Then, of course, I think if you're going to have Michael Hawkins playing in that Texas game, you really want to see him perform really well here against Kent State, a team that they should be able to handle just fine, a team that Oklahoma should be able to run all over, and even their defense being able to do some things, which we'll get to that a little bit. But then the running game. I know that Ben Arbuckle kind of hinted about Ott, talked about how good his bye week has been and how he's a competitor, how he's a guy that gets in there and he wants to do better. And, I think Ben Arbuckle was kind of made it feel like he was hinting towards the fact that we're going to see a lot of Ott this week. He was hinting towards the fact that Jaden Ott has been performing really well in practice throughout the bye week, and that we want to get him going. We want to see him out there, and I think Oklahoma fans, obviously, even by what Modern Day Caveman was talking about earlier in the chat, that you paid a lot of NIL to get this kid in. Oklahoma fans want to see the return in that. What is the ROI? Because we're not seeing it right now. Oklahoma fans want to see it, and I get it. I understand it. I think you should look at the fact that, hey, you were putting a lot of stock in Jaden Ott, but then you kind of unexpectedly got Tory Blaylock because of the competition there. And so maybe you ended up getting something out of this anyways. I know it sucks that you may have paid the wrong player, but I do think that if Jaden Ott's going to bounce back and have a big game, this has to be the game that he has a big game in. I think this is where Jaden Ott has to shine. And I said that a couple of weeks ago. Might have been in that Temple game. I said, I need to see Jaden Ott do something here. And I wish they would have pushed it more with him. Try to get him going in that Temple game. And they didn't. Couldn't get anything going in the Auburn game on the ground at all through the traditional run game. So, yeah, just some things to look at there for sure. Jumping over to the defense. Take a look at this defense because this is an absolutely dominant defense. Just extreme dominance. I absolutely love what we're seeing from this defense all year. And it's a defense that is the reason why Oklahoma will be just fine, even if John Mateer's not in for the next several games. I think Oklahoma will be just fine. I believe that because this is just a different defense, and this is the type of defense that Oklahoma fans have just been dreaming to have a glimpse of, let alone having a defense this good. And as you can see there, this is what Oklahoma was, the football social media team was putting this out there this week. Number 1 in sacks per game in the nation. It's a top 5 defense in the nation all around. Number 1 in sacks per game. Number 1 in third down defense. Number 2 in touchdowns allowed. Number 2 in total defense, number 3 in tackles for loss per game, and number 3 scoring defense. There's a lot more stats that you can look at with this defense and just see how awesome they are. So I think a big thing for this defense this week is, can they get some turnovers? I don't want to see this defense just come out here and perform really well and we walk away saying, hey, that was a good performance from this defense. Good job. They really didn't hold anything like we did against Temple and like we talked about against Illinois State, where the offense had a turnover that ended up giving the other team 3 points. And so you have to feel good about what the defense did. No, I'm not content with that anymore because Oklahoma is last in the nation in turnovers, forced turnovers. This defense has not forced a turnover all season. And I'm okay with that if you're able to keep it going and be this good of a defense. I'm okay with the fact that, if you're not getting turnovers, at least we're getting 3-and-outs. At least we're forcing them to long third downs. At least we're getting sacks and getting tackles for loss and forcing them to kick field goals rather than getting into the end zone. I'm happy with that and I'm content with that, but I want to take it a step further. I want to see this defense getting turnovers because just imagine this defense is that good and they haven't even gotten any turnovers yet. Imagine what this defense can do if they're able to force a couple of turnovers a game. If they start to average two turnovers a game, get yourself an interception and a fumble. I'm not really expecting that much. I mean, if you can average yourself one turnover per game, that brings this defense up so much further. And it also puts the offense in such a great spot when that defense is able to get a turnover, or you get a turnover down in the red zone where they're not allowed to kick that field goal that you were allowing against Temple or allowing against Illinois State, or even a couple of times where you allowed it against Auburn and Michigan. Get those turnovers, and this goes from a top 5 defense to the best defense in the nation. I think it's the best defense for what they've got out there, but it could be even better with those turnovers. That's really what I want to see. Another post to pull up here is David Stone here, man. David Stone, what an animal. And I'll read this off first. I can't see that too well on my screen, so I'm going to pull it up on my phone. Excuse me. David Stone, according to PFF, 84.9 PFF grading this season. He leads all SEC defensive tackles. All SEC defensive tackles in PFF grade, and he's had a lot of snaps. I don't have that pulled up on me right now, but he's played a lot of snaps. Take this back to earlier this offseason, whenever that transfer portal was kind of getting a little hectic, and David Stone almost transferred out. He put his name in the transfer portal and said, I think I need to leave for reasons that we can sit here and talk about the reasons all we want. But regardless of what those reasons were, Jim Nagy and crew were able to sit down and with him and whoever else and talk to David Stone and say, hey, we want you to stick around. We want you to withdraw your name from the transfer portal. And over the weekend, finally by Sunday, it came around. I think he put it in on Thursday or Friday. By Sunday, it came around and he withdrew his name from the transfer portal. And how ecstatic should Oklahoma fans be that that's the case? Because now they've got one of the top guys in the entire SEC, the top guy in the SEC right now when it comes to PFF grading, depending on how much you put your stock into that. This is a dude right here, and he has played so well. I think I've told this story before, but I go back to the first snap that David Stone ever took. I believe it was his first snap. It was the first that I can recall because I saw him out on the field. I was there for that Temple game last season when he went out there. I believe his first snap of the game and of his collegiate career at Oklahoma. And I know it's just against Temple. You can tell me that all you want, but you can't change my mind about how impressive it was for your first snap, or at least your first game, one of your first snaps, to be that David Stone fires off the ball and he takes 2 guys and bull rushes 2 guys at once, shoving them both back and forcing the quarterback to throw the ball really fast. And then it was a bad pass, wasn't able to go anywhere. And that's the kind of things that you don't see on the stat sheet for guys like David Stone. And that's why I put some stock into that PFF grading, because for defensive tackles, for defensive linemen, for linebackers, they don't get some of the credit for some of those stats like that. And specifically, I think for defensive tackles, for those quarterback hurries, those times that they're able to put pressure back there on the quarterback. I know there is a stat for quarterback pressure, but it's not really a key stat that I think is out there on a lot of box scores. So I think David Stone, man, I mean, how excited should Oklahoma fans be, or maybe not excited, how happy should Oklahoma fans be that they were able to keep him around? So going back to this defense, though, I think my expectation, what I want to see from this defense, a key part of this game against Kent State, it's not going to be just shutting this team out, which I really hope they can do. I think it's going to be getting a couple of turnovers, getting a couple of turnovers, doing something to get that ball back into your offense's hands. I think that's going to be really crucial for this defense. And specifically in this game here, where there's not a whole lot of great takeaways that you can get, even from beating Kent State 50-0. There's not a whole lot of great takeaways that you can get. But if you were able to force some turnovers, you can say, hey, you didn't do that against an FCS opponent earlier this year. You didn't do that against Temple earlier on this year. We're seeing something there. That's an improvement that you can walk away with and feel pretty good about. I'm going to jump over to the live chat. One second, real quick, before I get to the live chat. This is just Kent State, right? And I think a lot of Oklahoma fans go into it looking this way. I've seen a lot of Oklahoma fans putting out there on social media, hey, I've got spare tickets. I'm not going to this game. Here you go. Who wants them? And it's just an energy thing. And these kinds of games are good for fans that don't get to go very often to games. And that's a good thing. For you who are fans that don't get to go to games very often because of the crazy prices that they charge for tickets these days, I want you to treat this like fans treated that Michigan game or the Auburn game or the Alabama game last year or just any big game. I want fans in the stadium to treat this like a big game. Stay in the game. Stay in the moment. Make this an atmosphere. For those of you who are there all the time, this may be a boring game for you. This may be a game that you sit there and you watch and you don't really think too much of because you got to watch Oklahoma against Michigan this year. You get to watch Oklahoma against Auburn this year. This game is just boring. Still be in the game because there are fans that are there that don't get to go there every time, that don't get to experience that top-notch environment. And so I think that's really important for other fans. I think that's really important. But then also just recognizing that you've also got big time recruits every game. You've got big time recruits that you've got to look forward to, and trying to put that environment for them as well. Because again, this is not an exciting game. Oklahoma should be able to handle this. And if it is an exciting game, that's not exciting for Oklahoma fans, right? So make this an environment. Make it an environment that Kent State players walk away from saying, man, you remember that time that we played in Oklahoma? That was incredible. It sucked that we got blown out, but that environment was top notch. That was the best environment we'd ever been to. I think that's really, I don't know. I'm not one to sit there and get extremely crazy during the game. I don't know. I think I've got too much of a mind that I sit there and kind of analyze too much rather than focusing on screaming and all that. But one trick I'll give you: drink some hot honey with some tea in it before and after the game, and it really does help a lot. I forget who it was that told me that trick. That I said, man, like I have a hard time screaming at games because I end up losing my voice. They said, hey, hot tea with honey before, after. Just drinking some honey before, after. I think that would help quite a bit. We'll get to the live chat here real quick. Let's see here real quick. Jesse Browning, he says, I'm fine with OU not looking good, quote unquote, against Kent State, but I can see the negative national media coverage. Yeah, and that's all I think is that you are going to see some maybe some negative national media coverage just because they're going to say, see, without John Mateer, this is what this team is. This is just what they are. And I think that's kind of ignorant for some of them to put it that way. I think I understand where they're coming from, but I think it would be ignorant for them just to judge Oklahoma just based on how they perform in this game. So yeah, I think that's definitely something worth noting. Believe and be saved today. I love that username too. Every time I see that pop up, so shout out for the username there. I think they are the best defense in America except on turnovers. Yeah, turnovers. They are. If you were able to get a couple of turnovers a game, just get one turnover, average 1.2 turnovers per game for me. If you were able to do that on this defense, it is the best defense in the nation, hands down. I do not know another defense better than Oklahoma's right now. That's without them turning the ball over. I think Oklahoma's top 3 defense. You start to turn over the ball, there is no question, there is no debate. Oklahoma has the best defense, hands down. That's my opinion. So you can take that how you will. Jimmy Satterfield's in the chat. What is up, Jimmy? He says, Stone is definitely earning his money. Yeah, especially with kind of making that kind of into an incentive. I think he's definitely taken Oklahoma up on those incentives. Hey, he said I got to do what? All right, bet. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see what we can pull out. Let's see what we got. And back to Jimmy real quick. He says, "Can't wait to see the '85 uniforms." Yeah, you remember when they wore them last year? I've got the jersey, and what's funny too is I think it's hanging up in the studio. I'm not over in the studio today, just over in the office. Made it a little simple. Jump on real quick and easy. But it's funny because I went to a Nebraska game with that retro jersey on. My dad and my brother, they're Nebraska fans, and so went to go to a Nebraska game with them. That was last year, and wore that jersey, and everybody just thought I fit it right in. Like, oh, he's just wearing like a bland jersey. So that's kind of the perk of that. If you're an Oklahoma fan going to another game that you don't want to be disrespectful to that stadium or to that fan base, that's a good way to go. No, I love the retro unis, and I was seeing a debate or a conversation about this on social media this past week. I really I agreed with it too. Somebody said, "I wish Oklahoma would have just switched back to these uniforms when they made the transition into the SEC." And I thought about it at first. I was like, no. I mean, and then I was like, yeah, kind of that would have been kind of cool. Like, all right, we're bringing back retro Oklahoma. Or if they would have done it this season and just switched it up and been like, hey, we're going to retro Oklahoma uniforms and done it. And then I saw somebody say, no thanks, it looks like red and white Penn State. And then I couldn't get that out of my head. And I was like, man, why did you have to ruin that for me? Why'd you have to ruin that? But no, I do love those '85 uniforms, kind of bouncing back to the good old days, the good old Oklahoma days back before my time, honestly. We've had 5+ turnovers slip through the fingers so far. Yeah, especially in that Auburn game, man. There was at least 3 for sure turnovers that should have happened. 2 interceptions, might have been 3 interceptions that I'm thinking of, because I know there was one from Kendall Daniels, I think, one in Peyton Bowen's hands, and I'm trying to remember what the third one was that I'm thinking of. But I know for sure there was 3 of them that I felt like should have been turnovers just in that Auburn game alone. But real quick, we're going to do something that we've been doing just a little bit here. If I can get it pulled up on my phone here, because I was not prepared for it. Should have been. We're going to go over and look at our friends over with Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is really fun. If you guys don't know what it is, if you haven't tried it yet, I think it's a blast. And I'm going to focus on Oklahoma. We're able to focus on just the Oklahoma game this week, so we're going to do just that. Because Underdog Fantasy, what it is just a fantasy app. You can go on here and just make your picks. You make your decisions, make your picks. And all you have to do is just pick higher or lower. They will give you a stat line. You pick higher or lower. And you make a couple of picks, 2, 3, add them up. The more you add them up, the more you multiply how much you can win. And of course, if you go over and check out Underdog Fantasy by clicking the link down in the description below, you get signed up. I mean, you can play $5 and you'll get $50 in bonus funds. It really is a lot of fun. Go look at the description down below. You do have to be 21 or older to play, and please gamble responsibly. But we're going to go through here, and I'll make my picks for the week. Just because I was looking through here earlier, and I was getting a little excited because I see Michael Hawkins Jr. pop up. And here's one. Here's a really easy one for you guys. Michael Hawkins Jr., 0.5 rushing/receiving touchdowns. I don't think he's going to have a receiving touchdown, but Michael Hawkins Jr. has to have a rushing touchdown in this game. So I'm going to pick higher on that. That's your only option. You either pick higher or nothing. So I'm going to pick Michael Hawkins Jr. to have a rushing touchdown. I think he gets 1 rushing touchdown. And then you look around at the other stats. I want to look at Michael Hawkins Jr. passing yards. They've got him at 270.5 passing yards. I would love to see him go over that mark. I really would. I don't think that Oklahoma is going to use his arm as much as we might expect. I think they're going to use that run game. I think they're going to try to hammer that run game. So I'm going to say lower than 270.5. I think he throws for right around that 210, 215 mark, and I'm happy with that. 215 and a couple of passing touchdowns. I'm feeling really good about Michael Hawkins. No turnovers. I really would like to see that. All right, let's go over to receiving touchdowns. Who do we like? So we can either do Keontez Lewis, Dion Burks, or Isaiah Satania. Those are the three that we've got on here. And man, I'm going to pick my third one. And I was looking through these three. You could pick Torrey Blaylock for a rushing touchdown as well. But I'm going to go between these three, Isaiah Satania, Keontez Lewis, or Dion Burks. And I was having a hard time. I was looking through. I wish I could pick Jaren Kanak. I think this is going to be the game that Jaren Kanak gets his first touchdown. But I am going to go, man, what do you guys think? I'm going to go with Dion Burks. Dion Burks gets a touchdown in this game, right? Receiving touchdown for Dion Burks. That's what we're going to go for. So we've got Dion Burks with a receiving touchdown, Michael Hawkins Jr. with a rushing touchdown, and then Michael Hawkins Jr. for lower than 270, but maybe not by much, maybe like 250. I'd be really happy with that. But go over, check it out. Check out Underdog Fantasy today. Really is a really fun app. You go through there, make your picks, make all of your selections, all that fun stuff, and just have a good time with it. Go check it out. That's just click that link down in the description below. You must be 21 or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER today. Go check it out. Use the code VOCFBOU and click that link down in the description to get signed up today. Again, use the code VOCFBOU to play $5, get $50 in bonus funds there on Underdog Fantasy. Be responsible with it, but go over there, check it out. A lot of fun. Again, let's get into it. We're going to go back to it, and we're going to get into prediction time. All right, so prediction. Like I mentioned a moment ago, let me scroll up on my notes here. Oklahoma about a 45.5-point favorite, sitting there at 53. So Vegas is predicting about 49-6 is what Vegas is predicting here for the game. I would say I'll hit the under for Oklahoma. Not for Oklahoma. Hit the under on the points total, 53.5. I think it's just under that. I don't think Oklahoma's going to score 50-plus points. I also don't think this defense is going to allow Kent State to score. I don't think Oklahoma's going to have any turnovers, which means that the defense is not going to allow a score. The defense is only allowed a score against Illinois State and Temple just because there was a turnover that gave them close enough range to be able to kick a field goal. That's not going to be the case in this game. I don't see that. But I also don't think Oklahoma is really going to try to rack up the points or anything. I think they're going to score plenty. But I think Oklahoma, they score 40-plus points. And again, this defense, if this defense can get some turnovers, and thinking of how they can help this offense by getting those turnovers and getting them into plus territory. Get 3 turnovers this game. That's what I want to see. I don't think that's going to be the case. Getting 2 turnovers would make me happy. One would be like, hey, we got one, so I'm going to be content with that. I want to see 2. I really want to see 3. Anything more than that, hey, if we could have a Temple game from last season, what was that, 5 or 6 turnovers in that first game last season against Temple? Let's do that. But anyways, my prediction, I'm going to go with it. You guys put your predictions down in the chat as well. I want to see your guys' predictions. We'll get to that in just a second. My prediction is I'm going to go Oklahoma wins 48-0. They do cover the spread, so there you go. Oklahoma goes 4-1 on the season covering the spread if they were to win 48-0, but they don't quite hit the over, and so they're going to go 5 straight games by hitting the under, which I'm totally okay with. That means we've got a really good defense that isn't allowing any scores. So I like this. I think 48-0 too. I think this is a confidence building exercise for Oklahoma without John Mateer and getting into it, getting Michael Hawkins Jr. feeling comfortable. A tune-up game against Kent State. Got to make sure and be careful that you're not doing something that's going to, again, have a bad game. I know we mentioned that a little bit ago, but I don't want to see Oklahoma have a bad game. I think that's a bad sign for Oklahoma to have a bad game. And I mean bad game in the terms of maybe you only score and beat them 28-3 or 28-6. That would be a bad game for Oklahoma. That would cause some concerns. So I think Oklahoma's just fine. I think they had a good bye week from everything that I've heard, everything that I've seen, is that they've had a good bye week. You can't expect too much more. And they're going to come into this thing trying to run the ball, trying to get that run game going. They're going to score plenty. I think the defense getting some turnovers would help them score just a little bit more. And Oklahoma 48-0. That's my final prediction. I'm sure we'll revisit that in the post game and try to post game show and look at that. But let's jump over to the live chat again. Put your predictions in the live chat too. I would love, actually put your predictions not in the live chat but in the actual comments as well. So you can do it in the live chat, but then after this show, or even if you just close it out and put it in the actual comments, because I want to go back and see what you guys have. I might even be able to write them down. If you put them in the live chat, I can try to write them down. But if you want me to be able to give you a little bit of a shout out for close predictions, and maybe we'll start to do some giveaways or something too. I'll talk to the network about seeing what we can do here about getting some giveaways going or something like that for people that are able to get the closest. So far, I think I win for the closest in the last 3 games. I don't remember how close we were on the Temple prediction. Well, I'll have to ask Chad. I'm sure he's got that written down in his legal notepad. I know for sure that Auburn game, I think I was a point or two off. And then we were spot on in the Michigan game. So let's see who can get the closest score. And maybe we'll work in something to try to see what we can do. But anyways, at the very least, shout out for the closest getting into that score prediction. So put that in the comments, not just the live chat, but then the comments. If you drop it in the live chat too, I can look at it now. But anyways, going over to the live chat, Jesse says, who's on upset alert? Mine is Texas losing to Florida. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans want that to be their upset alert. Upset alert. I would say Miami, Florida State is one upset alert. I think that's one. I think Florida State upsetting Miami would be shocking. Let me look at what that one is. That was one game. I think one that I'm actually looking at pretty closely is the Texas Tech Houston game. And I'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, so Miami right now, it's going to be at Florida State. It's not really that long of a travel. And I don't really consider that too much of a road game. It is a road game. But they're a 4.5 point favorite. Miami is on the road, which means that they're expected to win by a touchdown. So if you don't know, Vegas predicts when they predict and put that spread in there, they actually give the home team 3 points. That's kind of how that works. So if this was at Miami, then they would actually be a 7.5 point favorite. But so they're 4.5 point favorite. I think that's an upset alert that you could look at for this weekend. Before I get to the Texas Tech one, and I'll pull that one up, how about Louisville? Louisville is a touchdown favorite at home against Virginia, who just upset Virginia just upset Florida State. So really interesting one to look at there. I think that's another upset alert if you're wanting to look around. I think Louisville pulls it off. It's kind of crazy to me that Virginia is ranked and Louisville isn't, but I think Louisville pulls that one off. But yeah, take a look at those two. I think Florida State, Louisville, but then the Texas Tech. So Texas Tech against Houston. The reason why I say watch out, upset alert here, is that Texas Tech just had a really big win. Was that last weekend against Utah? Yeah. So their last game against Utah, really big win, ended up beating Utah 34-10. Now they go on the road to Houston. I know it's not too far of a travel for them, but they still go on the road to Houston. And Houston right now is kind of cooking. I mean, the Cougs are cooking. They had kind of a struggle against Oregon State in their last game. Last weekend against Oregon State, it was 27-24 in overtime. But Houston, they handled business really well against Colorado earlier on in the year. They handled their business against some inferior opponents, against Rice and SF Austin. But watch out. I think, not that I think Houston is that good that they could beat Texas Tech. I think they're good enough to beat Texas Tech. I'm not saying that. But I think Houston could upset Texas Tech just because Texas Tech is coming off that big win. You get that big win and you start to forget that you've got to focus on the opponent at hand. So, no, I like that one. Jesse, pulling up some of the upsets. I do think Florida upsetting Texas, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, but I think Florida's just not good enough on offense to win that game. I don't see it. So their defense is good enough to keep them in the game. I think it's going to be a close game. I just don't think that Texas loses that game. And personally, I don't want Texas to lose that game. I know it's fun for rivalries, for rival teams to laugh at the other rival team for losing to an inferior opponent, and that would be great to see Texas go down and just spiral downward. But as far as Oklahoma's concerned, if Texas is winning and Oklahoma can beat Texas, then that's better for Oklahoma than if Texas were to spiral down. So I don't know. I'm okay with it if Texas has a downward spiral and all of a sudden just has a horrible season. Sure, let's laugh at them all we want, but I do want to see I do want to see Texas do well just for Oklahoma. Make Oklahoma look good when Oklahoma beats them next week in the Red River. Jimmy says mine is Vandy beating Bama. I don't think that's going to be the case just because Vandy's not sneaking up on Bama the way they were last year. And Bama's ticked off. Did you see the way that Bama performed against Georgia? And it just felt like they outplayed Georgia. It wasn't that they outmatched them. It wasn't that they were just a better team or that there was anything that Alabama really had that was that much better than Georgia. Obviously, I think this the talent wise is pretty equal there, but Bama starting off the season, they lost that game against Florida State, and it's like something snapped. Something got turning there, and something got flipped around there for them. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. I like that game. I think that's going to be a fun game to watch, and I think Vanderbilt's a lot better this year. So that would be interesting. And I think Bama was like a 14-point favorite at one point. It might only be like a 10-point favorite now. So yeah, that is one to keep your eyes on. I'm just not gonna pick Vandy to beat Bama in Tuscaloosa this year, but it's possible for sure. Thunder OU Sooner, what is up in the chat? He says Texas fans and Texas media is paying attention to John Mateer than worrying about Florida. Yeah, they really are. They're paying way more attention to Oklahoma, and I know I've seen a lot about that. And yeah, it's weird to me. I understand the rivalry thing, and I posted something out there about that. Like, why are Texas fans and Texas media so much more worried about Oklahoma when it's not even an Oklahoma week than they are just like their own team? Like John Mateer, his injury was just like the biggest news for Texas media, and that would come up, I'm sure, if Arch Manning were to go down. I'm sure we'd be like, hey, Arch Manning went down and we're not sure if he's playing against Oklahoma. This is news. But it was like the biggest news ever. Or just Oklahoma. We talked about this on the show. Oklahoma cheats against Auburn, therefore Texas media. And it's not just some random Texas media outlet. I had all kinds of comments on that video that we talked about. Like Texas media is like infatuated with Oklahoma too much, to where they're talking about the Oklahoma Auburn matchup in that game and how the SEC and the NCAA should vacate that win from Oklahoma to teach them a lesson. Like that is what they're concerned about, rather than just writing about Oklahoma. And everyone's like, well, but you guys have these random one-off podcasts, like this one. Like this is not like an official Oklahoma, you beat writing podcast or anything. Like we are an independent podcast. We're not partnered with Rivals or On3 or 247 or anything like that. The one that I was bringing up that they were talking about trying to vacate Oklahoma's win against Auburn and calling Oklahoma cheaters, that was an On3 publication talking about that. So yeah, I mean, it's weird to me. And then I saw somebody post something about Texas A&M was talking about, what was it? The Texas A&M board. They were talking about Oklahoma and Texas for some reason. And I it's just weird to me when you're worried so much about your rival that you're like talking about your rival on things that have nothing to do with you. And yeah, you're right though. They really do seem like they're paying more attention to John Mateer. Maybe that's why they end up losing to Florida this week, but I don't think that's the case. I think Texas wins that game probably by 10 points. But I think that Arch Manning's starting to look better. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Jimmy Satterfield says, I hope Giovanni Gibson gets some catches. Yeah, I hope he gets his hands on the ball. I hope he is able to work some of that rust off. I did see, I believe it was him that they were talking about, where they were just kind of talking about him trying to get comfortable again, where he's comfortable with that contact. I think once he kind of gets in there and gets a little bit better of a feeling, then he'll be just fine. Hopefully he'll be all good. Let's see here. Going back to Believe, he says, that would be so nice if we go off and get a ton of turnovers. My prediction is OU wins 70-0. I know that sounds like a homer take, but Kent State looks bad. Kent State does look bad. They look atrocious. So I don't think that's extremely like far out there. I think Oklahoma with John Mateer in and the defense getting like 3 turnovers this game, I think Oklahoma could win 70-0, and I don't think that would be crazy. Even with Michael Hawkins Jr. in 3 or 4 turnovers, this could be a 70-0 blowout. It really could. And so, yeah, I don't think that's a homer take at all. Kent State is horrible. Like I said, probably the worst team in FBS right now. And here, I didn't even go through that. But okay, so they're 1-3 right now. They're one win coming against Merrimack. They've been scored 159-52 over the last 3 games that they've lost. 159-52. I mean, they're horrible. They are atrocious. They got Drew DeShields. He's going to be the quarterback for them. I didn't really go through all this, so I apologize for that, guys. But they're allowing 44 points per game, and that's against inferior opponents, against like Buffalo. I know they got whooped by Florida State. Yeah, Oklahoma might be able to score 70 on them. And I hope I'm wrong in my prediction in that sense that they score 70-0. I really hope that's the case. But they're going to look for a lot of explosive plays for Oklahoma. That's kind of what I'm getting from whenever I was looking at Kent State and what I think could happen there. But I'm going to stick to my prediction. I think 48-0. And some of these explosive plays too, I think them trying to get explosive plays, it's going to go bad for them. And that's where you get a couple of turnovers there. You get some interceptions, get a pick 6 or 2, maybe get Isaiah Satania to finally return a touchdown this season. It would be a lot of fun. But anyways, I appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, put your score predictions in the comment section, not here in the live chat. Put it in the comment section because I do want to jump back to some of those predictions and give you guys a shout out. So stay tuned. We have shows on, we will have a show on Saturday right after the game as quick as we can jump on. It'll be for sure Chad and Tierney. I will try to hop on myself as long as I can get out and get to a computer fast enough, and we might be able to team up on that too this weekend. So make sure to tune in. Post game show right after the game on Saturday. Sunday, I'm not sure. I will let you guys know. We might end up having a late Sunday show if we do a Sunday show, just because I'll be traveling a little bit. But make sure to stay tuned because we'll also have our Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday show next week as well. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to help further, become a member today by clicking that link down in the description or scanning that QR code right over there. Scan that QR code on the bottom right-hand side of the screen to become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. Also, check out all of our merchandise. Again, wearing that shirt today. We've got some shirts, hats, tumblers, mugs, all that kind of stuff. You name it. Go check it out. Support the show. Support the network. Appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.